Atkinson. I bought my range of stamps. I've got 10 different stamps in the range. I've got 8 for you today. You might wonder why I've got 10 different tools with the sole purpose of making nail holes. So I'm going to explain this to you now. So this is the concave stamp. The concave stamp is designed for stamping nail holes into either a concave shoe or a fullered shoe, like this. The concave stamp is slightly more elongated that way than the plain stamp. It's designed to accept the shaft of a nail rather than the head of the nail. Plain stamps accept the head of a nail, but concave stamps are just designed to accept the shaft of a nail, hence the shape. It's more elongated, more rectangular that way. So the fullering or the concave in the shoe is designed to accept the head of the nail, but this stamp is designed for stamping just a hole for the shaft of the nail. These stamps are designed the sharp, so when you put that stamp into the shoe, 2 taps and that'll be straight to the bottom of your section. There's no need for you to put it into the shoe and give it 4, 5, 6 hits into the shoe. They're sharp and they're designed to work and they're designed to fit an E-head nail. This next stamp is a plain stamp. This is a concave stamp, that's a plain stamp. As you can see, it's slightly wider that way, also slightly wider that way. That gives it a larger surface area for stamping shoes. That's designed for stamping into flat steel, like this shoe here. It's designed to accept the head of the nail, hence it's perfect fit for the head of the nail that way and a perfect fit for the head of the nail that way. It's designed to fit an E-head nail, and I make these and I check every single one of them before they leave my forge to make sure they're perfect. If they're not perfect, they don't leave the forge. It's that simple. This is another plain stamp, same again for stamping into flat steel like this. Same as the normal plain stamp, but this is a larger plain stamp. You can see the diameter is larger that way and again larger that way. This stamp, the small plain stamp or standard plain stamp, is designed for fit a E4, E5, E6 head depending on the thickness of the steel. The large plain stamp is designed to fit E6, E7, E8, possibly even E9 in flat steel. So as you can see, once again, it's designed perfectly to fit the head of an E-size nail. These again, I check every single one of them before I leave my forge. If they're not perfect, they don't leave the forge. Now we go on to the big boy. This is a draft or Cartor stamp. It's a plain stamp again for stamping into flat steel, obviously on a bigger shoe than this, but to make a plain stamp nail hole to accept the head of a big nail. So that's the large plain stamp. This is a draft stamp. As you can see, it's substantially bigger again. The reason I've made this considerably bigger than the large plain stamp is it's stamping into a very hot piece of steel. The big draft shoes, they're big and heavy and they hold the heat quite well. So this absorbs the heat without getting too hot too quick. If it was a small tool, it'd get too hot too quick and it wouldn't function very well. This again, designed to accept the head of an E10 nail, fits perfectly. They're all tried and tested before they leave the forge. They're guaranteed to fit a nail. If they don't fit a nail, they don't leave the forge. Right, these are the speciality stamps that I make. This is a city head stamp, which is designed for, this will punch into either flat steel or fullered steel, and even concave steel if needs be. It's designed to fit the head of a nail. You see how it's exactly the same size as a city head stamp. I try these before they leave the forge. I quite like these. I think they're a funky shape and they work, they fit the nail and they look good. This is my tool and fullered shoe, tool and fullered stamp for stamping nail holes for E-head nails into a tool and fullered shoe. The reason it balloons in there, goes in and nips up there is so when it's into the shoe, into a tool and fullered shoe, which invariably are quite a lot thicker than a normal shoe, you can stamp your nail in without marking either side of your fullering. It's quite a good little tool to have. It makes a big difference when you're making tool and fullered shoe. And that is designed to accept an E-head nail. These are just the variations of the stamps. This is a concave stamp. It's got, I've put a black and red handle on it just so it's very easy for guys to pick up out the toolbox. They can just see black and red handle, concave stamp. But it's a welded stamp, welded handle stamp. It's designed to fit an E-head nail, and it's designed to put nail holes into a concave shoe or a fullered shoe. This is just another variation of a plain stamp, designed obviously for plain stamping shoes, plain stamping into flat steel. It's designed to fit an E-head nail. See how it measures in? The head of the nail is exactly the same size as the head of the stamp. And this is a welded handle stamp. Blue and yellow, just made it bright, just for the simple reason when you're in your toolbox rooting around for a tool, you can just see it right at the bottom of your toolbox, dead easy, pick it out, get the right stamp every time. Welded handle stamp, tried, tested before it leaves the forge, guaranteed to work. So that's the range of stamps that I make. Hope you understand now and appreciate the amount of passion that goes into it. I make a specific stamp for a specific job. So there's a lot of passion goes into making them, and I hope you have a lot of passion when you use them. So these stamps, like all stamps, anything that's a cold piece of steel that's going into a hot shoe to make a nail hole, or a hole for a stud hole, anything like that, or even the fullerene, the end of the stamp over a period of time gets heated up, cooled down, heated up, cooled down, heated up, cooled down. It goes into a hot shoe, so it gets hot. So the molecules in the steel, eventually there's millions of molecules, little balls that are all bonded together inside of this steel. And over a period of time, these molecules have become more unstable, because this piece of steel's got hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. So every now and again, it's a good idea to put the H13 steel in the gas fire, just get it up to a nice yellow heat, and just pull it out and leave it somewhere to cool on its own. And that'll allow these molecules to become more balanced and more happy. And that'll just prolong the life of your tool. So this is a concave stamp. I'm just going to show you how to sharpen it. This is made of H13 steel, so it can be sharpened in either the coke forge or the gas forge. Most guys have a gas forge now, so I've got one in the fire now, just cooking away. But the most important part of sharpening a stamp is that you get your stamp sat flat on the anvil, and your hammer must be flat onto the stamp there. You can't have it lifted up or just hitting that corner like that. It's got to be sat flat on the anvil, and you forge it flat that way, and then turn it round. But you can't have it lifted up off the anvil or lifted up off the anvil. It's got to be flat. It's very, very important to make sure that's flat, so you're forging a nice flat surface each time. So this is a nice temperature. Brush the scale off it, keeping it flat on the anvil. Don't ever worry about forging a stamp down and the stamp end, the very point of the stamp, becoming too small, because you can just pop that on the grinder and sharpen it up that way. Just remembering to keep it flat, parallel with the anvil, and you've got to trap it with your hammer there, so your hammer's got to be covering the entire surface of the stamp. But that's just getting a little bit too cold to forge now. But that's a nice size. Get a pritchel there. That's quite a nice size stamp. That stamp now will fit probably an E7, I would have said. So if you need to sharpen stamps up to make them for smaller nails or bigger nails, you can just draw it down a little bit more, and that'll go to an E2 or an E3 easily. If not, it's a perfect shape now. I could just put it on the grinder, grind a little bit more off the end, and I can make it fit an E8 or an E9 easily. And then I put that somewhere nice on the coke forge just to cool down, because it's air hardening steel. So let it cool at room temperature and it'll become hard on its own. This is my stamp. This is a concave stamp. I've taken the shaft out of it for maintenance. All the stamps are made of H13 with the exception of the welded handle stamps. I'm going to show you how to maintain this stamp and all the other stamps just by using a linisher or grinder. I'm just going to show you, or introduce you to my linisher. I've got linishers in the forge, I've got linishers in the van. I love them. They're great for tool maintenance and obviously boxing shoes off. So this is my linisher in the van. I love these linishers because for sharpening, polishing up hammer faces, like I said, you don't want a flat hammer face, you need the hammer face to be slightly domed. If I polish the hammer face up on this big plate there and span it round, I'd end up with a perfectly flat face on the hammer. I don't want that. I want it to be able to just pivot slightly. So this little cavity between that point there and that point there is a perfect place to sharpen hammers. So you just apply pressure there. There's nothing underneath of the belt, so the belt's got a little bit of give in it. There you can see how the belt's got a give in it there. So if you're polishing a hammer face, it'll just put a slight dome on it. If I put it back there, it's on the plate there, and it just make it perfectly flat. Same with the hole punch. The hole punch is obviously round. If I polished it up on a flat surface, I get flat corners on it there. So I can apply pressure there. You can see there the belt has a little bit of give in there, so it's polishing a slightly rounder surface on it. So this is the concave stamp. I've just taken the shaft out. I'm just going to show you how I sharpen them at home. This is the quick way of doing it. Sometimes you can put them in the fire, heat them up and forge them out. But even if you do heat them up and forge them, you've still got to get them on the grinder. Make sure it's at 90 degrees to that surface there, and just touch on there, just to give you a nice flat surface on the end, because that should be sharp. The sharper the end of the pritchel is, the stamp, sorry, the sharper the end of the stamp is, the better it'll go into the shoe. My stamps, I like them really sharp, so I put them in the shoe, tap them twice, and that's it. The stamp hole, nail hole sunk right to the bottom. So with the hammers, you work on this little area there because there's nothing underneath. With the stamps, you work on this area back here because there's a steel plate underneath there. That gives you a perfectly flat surface to grind all your tool faces up. Once you've ground your tool faces up on there, onto here, just like with the hammer, and just go around and just take the edges off there. just to make it safe, so if you do have a glancing blow, less chance of something chipping. So I'm just going to show you how I grind up the stamps. Here we go. So that's ground up all the surfaces, so they're all nice and clean. There's no burrs on the end of the stamp, where you tend to get little burrs down there, where it's the smallest part of the stamp. It goes into the shoe, it gets hot. Obviously, when it's hot, it's softer than it would be normally. So I've ground all those out nicely, and now it's ready to pop back on the shaft and go and use it.